read on the government guidelines yesterday something that quite surprised me. It was one of these slogans, something like "keep your distance." That sounds like a driving one, doesn't it, really? Save the NHS, that sounds like a socialist one, or Labour. It's an extraordinary volte-face that where we have the most right-wing conservative government in living memory outdoing the Labour Party in socialist policies. They've just written off £13 billion of NHS debt. Anyway, one of the slogans that I saw on the government restrictions was "act as if you've got it." Well, this is a very bizarre and quite a disturbing frame of mind to be in, I suggest. Act as if you've got it. Well, of course, the truth is that the vast majority of us haven't got it. Here in Derbyshire, out of a population of 750,000, I've been noticing the figures, the cases, and 2 weeks ago it was 14, and then it was 114 a week later, and now I haven't checked this morning, but yesterday it was 370. So 370 out of 750,000 have got it, but the other 630 of us will have to act as though we've got it. And this bizarrely turned my thoughts to what is a very well-known biblical, well, is it biblical? It's part of the Christian canon, this idea of original sin. But when I was on Lanzarote, I did some original research on original sin, and it turns out it's not so original. It certainly doesn't appear in the Bible. It certainly doesn't appear in the Genesis account. It's taken to be from the Adam and Eve story in the Garden of Eden. And as you know, God said you can eat of the fruit of any tree in the garden, including the tree of life. They could eat of the fruit of the tree of everlasting life there and then. But the one tree, the fruit of which they couldn't eat, God told Adam, was the cox. No, the apple tree. And well, we know what happened then. And Adam tried to pin the blame on Eve, and Eve tried to pin the blame on the serpent. And that disobedience cost us our place in the Garden of Eden. Now, actions have consequences, but the idea that that was the original sin and that it is passed on like a virus, but not only by the offspring of Adam and Eve. That's, you can sort of get the DNA line coming through there, but we're talking about a character trait, or a state of being. Original sin as a state of being, corrupt, flawed, fallen, nasty, but more than that, it's a state of being judged innately by God that you are guilty. So you come out of the womb, and before your first breath, allegedly, according to, as I understand it, the original sin, you're guilty until pronounced dead. That's allegedly how death comes into this world through original sin. Well, I'm sorry, this is not my understanding and my reading of sin in the Bible. In fact, the word sin doesn't even appear in the Garden of Eden story. The first time the word sin appears in Genesis is a few chapters later on, when Cain kills Abel, and that was a sin. And Cain did a runner, of course. So where does this idea of original sin in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, come from? Well, it's a very late addition, it turns out, by a very revered Christian philosopher and bishop, Saint Augustine, but not until, I think, somewhere around the year 400. He was a big noise in a northern African, anyway, part of North Africa called Hippo. He was the Bishop of Hippo. Conjures up all sorts of strange images, that. Of the congregation wallowing in a mud pool. But he had, you can read all about his early sex life in his 18 books of confessions. And he sowed his oats as a young man did. Well, this young man did anyway. I didn't, but he did. And apparently he feels so mortified by it that, well, he then became celibate. Big mistake. There's nothing more sacred than sex. There's nothing more transformational than sex. But he foisted onto the world this virus, which we now know as original sin, which is a sort of a rear view mirror projection from him feeling bad about his sexual proclivities, and projecting it onto the Adam and Eve story. And so we have a choice, it seems to me anyway. If you grow up in the Christian, particularly evangelical tradition, which was my choice when I was 17, this becomes part of your canon, part of your credo, part of your, I would say, baggage. This, you take it on board, the idea that you are a sinner, tainted, what's that word, with the same brush as Adam. It's inherited, but it's also sort of God stamped, that you are guilty with this original sin. Well, all I'd say is you have to look that up for yourself. I think it's very debatable. I think it gives a very tilted, it sheds the wrong light on our true nature as made in the image of God. If you're a Christian in particular, and maybe one can even say grown up in a Christian westernized mindset or culture, civilization, this is a very familiar idea that you're rotten to the core from birth. Ain't necessarily so, as the song goes. And this is, it seems to me, the distinction between behaving as if we've got the virus and understanding that we don't have the virus. And it colours everything. It's a sort of a Midas touch, isn't it? If you think you are an original sinner, then naturally everything you touch is tainted. But if actually you're living in the grace of the goodness of God, which I believe we are living in the kingdom, and the kingdom has come when Jesus said it is finished, nothing more to do. Passport stamped, thank you very much. and it's all inclusive. We're all in the kingdom, because the kingdom is within us. So job done, and we are. St. Paul in his letters to the Romans says, so what are we, what if we are no longer under sin, are we to keep on sinning? Of course not, he says. Romans chapters 8 and 9 are worth checking out on that front. So my friends, the stain has lifted. There's a lovely hymn which I sometimes use the refrain of in my meditation, and it goes, ransomed, healed, restored, forgiven. And that is our true position. That is our inheritance from the Christ who came and dealt with sin. It is finished. It is dealt with. So, whilst I understand the government needs to have its mottos, its sayings, it's to make us aware of the seriousness of the situation, please don't act as though you've got the virus, because you probably haven't.